Hello, I'm Liz.
And I'm Jamie.
Welcome to Follow the Boat, in which we discuss what it's really like to give it all up to live on a boat.
And go travelling around the world. We've been doing it since 2006 and we're still at it.
Each week we talk about our latest YouTube video.
And about boats, sailing, travel or anything else which floats into our heads.
And if you leave a comment we like, we'll give you an answer and a name check. Peace and fair winds. So I got you this morning, didn't I?
Got me. What? Pinch and a punch?
Yes. Yeah, so it's something that we try to outdo each other every month, don't we? And I reckon overall this time, I'm winning.
No, you're not winning. There was a spate where I got you month after month. Sometimes I'm still awake at midnight and I'm lying in bed waiting and I'm thinking, she's fast asleep. Can I get away with just doing a nice gentle pinch and a punch?
That doesn't count. That really doesn't count. It's me getting you first thing in the morning as well.
Yes, well, I'm not in the best of moods first thing in the morning until I've had my coffee, and then you launch yourself at me and go, pinch and a punch first day of the month.
Anyway, so all of that will explain to our viewers and listeners that today is the 1st of February.
It is.
2022.
Yes, and I was going to say Happy Chinese New Year.
Yes.
But Ian Warrior, under last week's podcast, actually said to us, love the podcast, but I have one criticism. Can you please not say Happy Chinese New Year, but Happy Lunar New Year? And he's writing from Vietnam. He said, not all of us are Chinese, but many of us do celebrate Lunar New Year. Now, we spoke to Roy about this the other night around the table of bollocks, or the palapa of information. And Roy had looked it up and he said, yes, even Malaysia officially calls it Lunar New Year.
So there we go. We stand corrected. And it's something that we will remember from now on. Unless we're in China,
Yes.
We'll just call it New Year. That's what I've been doing with a lot of the taxi drivers and people in shops. I just say Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Because you're not quite sure whether they're Chinese, Malay, or whatever it is. And so, yeah. So there we go. Chinese New Year. 1st of February, which means it's not long now.
Well, I'm hoping this is going to be the last podcast from the marina.
Wow, yes, I think you might be right. So
Could
this
be.
time next week, we should have left, which means an awful lot of things still to do.
Yes, although we're very slowly whittling off the jobs.
Yeah.
We're rattling our way through them. And there's not much left to do now apart from a bit of provisioning.
Yes, that's what you say, because I do most of the food stuff. There's quite a lot to do. But before we talk about that, I want to know what you've been up to since the last podcast.
Well, exciting stuff, really exciting stuff. Because, of course, for the last couple of podcasts, I've been harping on about our lithium batteries, which were somewhere out there being shipped up the coast. And they arrived. They got installed. Another fanfare, please. Oh. And then, I'm not going to say anymore.
Oh, come on, you can't leave everyone hanging. You've got to tell them.
Well, I think this is, I've vlogged this extensively.
Okay.
So we got Hans in, who I wanted to get in. He's an expat who's both a carpenter and an electrician. And I can't remember if I've mentioned this, perhaps I did in the up and coming vlog, that soldering is my Achilles heel.
You hate it.
I'm really, and do you know what? I've been playing with the soldering iron since I was a kid.
I think you've got a mental block. I reckon at one stage you did something and totally ballsed it up.
Yeah, that would most likely.
Yeah, and somehow it's now going around in a cycle in your brain. It's like, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, and I practice. But anyway, I got Hans in just to help me with a very fiddly soldering job to install something within our system. And yeah, well, we got it up and running, and that's all I'm going to say because I want to save what actually happened
Okay.
for the vlog.
Oh, right, but they won't see that for ages.
Well, do you know, with our vlogs, we're actually catching up.
Okay.
We'll talk this week about the vlog that went out on Sunday, which was us still up in the mountains. But the next couple are literally going to be the last of the boat prep before we leave. So
Okay.
we should see the installation of the new lithium batteries within the next couple of weeks or so.
Right, so we've got 2 provisioning videos that we're already under our belt, and then the third one, which will be about this, and that will be it, and then we'll be off.
Hopefully.
Okay. Oh yes, hopefully. Well, yes, because one of our party, we're going with 3 other boats. They set off early because they wanted to get up to Kudat before we set off officially. And halfway up, they realised their steering wasn't working. Well, not sorry, their autopilot wasn't working.
Well, and their depth sounder.
Yeah.
So I need to get the lowdown. And Hans, again, he was called out because ironically, they happen to be at anchor at Kota Belud, which is one of the villages outside of KK, 30 miles up the coast. And it turns out Hans actually lives in Kota Belud, so he was able to go out and see. It's Sharon and Lindsay on Songlines 3.
Yeah.
But we haven't got the full lowdown on exactly what went wrong. But this is just so typical of cruising boats,
Yep.
you know. And I know Sharon and Lindsay, they stay on top of things. You know, they're very organised like that. And of course, they were the first to leave the marina and are halfway up the coast, and so they had their boat ready. Everything was tickety-boo. And then as they travelled up the coast, their autopilot went. So,
But you know what Lindsay always says? He says if one boat has a problem and he hears about it, he says as sure as nightfall as day, he then gets that problem. So let's hope that his problem isn't going to infect the rest of us. Okay, so lithium batteries. We're not going to give everything away now, but what else have you been doing since the last podcast? Anything? Have you done anything?
have I done anything? Getting these batteries installed is it's a big job, and you know, aside from that, it's really just a bit more video editing. I'm just trying to think what else.
We got the boat washed, didn't do it ourselves, did we?
Yeah, you know, washing a deck in the tropics, I find nowadays it kills my back because I've got back problems. And what happens is if I spend a day bent over washing the decks, I have to spend the next day lying horizontal in bed because it kills me.
So that's your reason for not doing it. Mine is that I can't bear the heat.
Yeah.
So unless we wash it very early in the morning or very late in the evening, it is incredibly hot at the moment. So being outside is just generally painful.
It's one of the, I mean, I love the tropics. I love living in the tropics, but it is one of those things. Do you find that you suffer from heat exhaustion?
Yeah, it's because we're in the marina and we're spending a lot of time on land. The minute we're at anchor, the minute we're off, no, not at all, never and never overheat. It's the marina just sort of feels like an oven. And heat exhaustion, well, I get tired. I think that's just me getting tired. I'm not sure. Do you get it then?
Well, do you remember when we went for that walk with Sharon and Lindsay, funnily enough, at Kota Belud, and I was getting really breathless?
Yeah, not good.
Well, it's either long COVID or it's heat exhaustion.
Or just general unfitness?
Possibly, yeah, although that time I was fairly fit. I'm not right now, that's for sure. I've been piling on the pounds.
I think when we leave here, we're both going to get a lot fitter and we're both going to lose weight and we're going to be gorgeous on screen and everyone's going to love us.
You always are, dear. You always are. Do you know, you got quite a few comments. Actually.
Did I?
Yes, just saying how gorgeous you look.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, are these blind people?
Yeah, they're people that just listen to the podcast. So enough about me, Elizabeth. What about you? What have you been up to this week? Not much really, is it?
I thought you'd never ask. Well, I just want to follow on from last week's podcast where I had been completely laden down with admin. If you remember, to apply to go to Indonesia this time is particularly difficult, and they really ran me through some hoops. Anyway, at the end, I'd finished all the paperwork and got it off. Anyway, this is where we are now. Having got the paperwork all off, I then had to spend the next 2 days resubmitting things because they hadn't got them or they were wrong and blah, blah, blah. But good news, we've got the visas.
Hurrah!
Yes. They've got the money and we've got the visas waiting for us with our agent who sponsored us. So it was worth the hassle. We're going to Indonesia. That was the last thing-ish to stop us going. So that's the first good news. Obviously I've been provisioning because we needed, not quite sure what we're going to get at the other end, what we're going to be able to get. Obviously we'll get basics. Certainly things like rice, eggs, stuff you can get anywhere.
Tomatoes if you're lucky.
Yeah. There are things that we've been told we won't get, and one of them is cheese.
We'll be able to get cheese. It will just be the processed sliced type.
Yeah. So my plan is to go to Merdeka here because they do the huge big blocks of cheddar, And as long as if I buy a couple of those, keep one wrapped up, and the other one I'm going to slice and put it in the fridge, use the vacuum sealer for that. So at least 2, possibly more. And I've also been experimenting with what I can vacuum seal and what I can vacuum seal and put in the fridge, and what I should be, the freezer, and what I should be putting in the freezer, because in 16 years we've never had one. So it's all a bit brave new world. I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do. I think the one thing we both agree on is filling it up with the soy veg rolls that we use as a basis for most of our cooking, because as vegetarians we need to ensure that we get protein, and these are protein rolls, and they're tasty, and they really add quite a lot to our cooking. So there's that.
But you said the other week that you're going to be catching fish every day.
Well, of course, yes, I have been saying that, and I've learnt that we can freeze the fish that I catch.
Great.
So it's a question of what else I'm going to put in the freezer. So there's that. Been thinking about that and doing bits and pieces with that. And talking of fish, one major thing that I need to do is to sort both my lines out, both my rods out. I took the reels from both rods in and had them rewound with braid. So that the braid is on there on both of them, but now it's my job to add the monofilament to the braid with an FG knot, which I've only done twice before, so I need to relearn that knot. Once I've got the braid properly fixed to the mono, I'll then wind that on, and then I've got my lures. They're already set up. So
could you go into this in more detail? Could you spend another 10 minutes telling us about this exciting?
It's really important, because when I catch those fish, you bloody love them.
I know, I'm being unfair. And I love you for the fact that you are so into fishing. And of course, originally it was me that used to do it, but
you started it.
I started it, but I'm happy to pass the baton to you, because
you never really had the complete joy and madness of fishing, did you?
That's not true.
No?
No, I did. I loved it.
Oh.
I did love it. What I don't have is the patience.
Yes.
When the line tangles up, I just don't have the patience to unknot it, and all those tiny fiddly knots.
Yes.
I was much happier just chucking a single line out and hoping for the best.
And that is the problem that most cruisers have, is they just chuck a line out and leave it. And of course, I've learned over the years that you can't do that. You've got to just keep playing with it. You've got to keep watching it. You've got to keep bringing it in, check it. Quite often it's got stuff on it. Oh look, there's a boat leaving.
No, that's quite unusual, because being Lunar New Year, everything's quite quiet today,
Yeah.
except this one boat. Do you know, I have to say, I don't like this boat, because this is the one that leaves oily trails in the water.
Do you agree, or maybe you disagree? Leave a comment for us on Twitter @Followtheboat.
So we paused there because of the noise from that boat, but he is leaving now, so shouldn't be too much of a problem with the background noise.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, but it is a real bugbear of yours, isn't it?
It is. Well, it's mainly because we've got cameras and microphones running, and they're all battery powered.
Yeah.
So we have a finite time in which to do this, and of course, if we have to retake it, I have to charge up all the batteries anyway. We actually got a couple of comments because we talked about background noise.
Yes.
And Robert Lewis said, "Love this format, love you both."
Oh, love you too.
Which is, he said, it's awesome that you have different viewing angles. That's for if you're watching this on YouTube, of course. This is a great way to do a video podcast. But he says the background noise is apparently not as loud to us as it is to you.
Right.
If anything, it adds to the realism and interest.
Okay, well that's good to hear. That's
Yeah.
good to hear.
And Steve S also said, "Thank you guys for all your videos. Background noise is really not that important. If the content is worth listening to, I find that yours is." Thanks
Thank
again.
you.
Cheers, Steve.
Well, let's hope it continues to be. And of course, next week we're going to be at anchor somewhere. We promise. So we won't have any of this nonsense.
Yeah,
will
well, then I'll just be worrying about the angle of the sun.
Yeah, but that's for video, and this is predominantly podcast. Remember that.
It is, yes.
And talking of podcasts, so what about last week's podcast? Did anything arise from that?
Yes, Edgar Chu, who is a frequent commenter.
Yes,
Hi,
and
Edgar.
a supporter.
Yeah. He says, "I like seeing the lively banter back and forth. The information that comes out is priceless." And I guess this goes back to my theory of the table of knowledge, or the palapper of bollocks.
Oh, here we go.
Where, you know, if you talk long enough, you do pick up some gems. And I suppose even the amount of rubbish we talk about at each other, occasionally there's a few gems that perhaps we don't think about that a viewer or a listener picks up on as a useful bit of information.
That's true, and it's also when we talk, isn't it? Because sometimes we've got no idea what we're going to do about something or other, and we sort of shout at each other a bit and chat about it and talk about it and worry at it, and eventually out of all of that we come up with a solution and we come up with a plan. So yeah, that's great.
Well, it's been interesting sitting around in the evening having sundowners with the remainder of the people here in the marina. One particular issue, which I can't talk about now because it will be in the vlog, was discussed at great length.
Right, I'm glad I wasn't there for that one.
But it was useful, and you know, a few things came out of that perhaps I can pursue. So yes, I think Edgar is right.
And I had a nice long chat with Penny about whether we should both dye our hair pink. What do you think? Pink ladies.
I love the idea.
Oh, you do?
I do. I think it would be good fun. Ooh. Someone did point out, though, that we have to be a bit careful when we check into Indonesia. Yeah. Because if you remember, when we tried to get our visa extension in Jakarta, I tried going into immigration in a pair of shorts and flip-flops.
No. Yes.
And that's a big no-no. Yeah. I had to go to the shopping mall next door, find an ill-fitting pair of long trousers, which I couldn't do up, just so I could cover my legs. So I do wonder what they'll think of pink hair.
Pink hair. I could wear a hat, could wear a baseball hat or something over the top of it. But I mean, pink hair isn't being rude.
No.
And particularly if I cover right up, you know, to my chin and my wrist and my ankles.
Yes.
Anyway, I've got till Friday to make that decision. It's Tuesday now, so I'm going to get hold of my hairdresser, Ruby, and see if she wants to do it.
I say go for it.
All right, okay. All right, so sorry, I interrupted you. We'll talk about the podcast.
Yeah, those were the... do you remember we had this running theme about me wanting to use people's names when I responded to them in comments?
Yes.
And do you remember we teased Nobody46820, who's a frequent commenter, and they left a comment last week, and I replied saying, "Still no name then," and he replied,
"Yes,
I am the wind and the bear, the diamond and the reed. I am he who was and shall be evermore."
Wow.
So I think I'm just going to abbreviate that to bear now. So Nobody46820.
Now known as Bear.
Bear, there we go.
Cool, I love that one. There is another comment that comes up regularly from one of our viewers on YouTube, but also a Patreon asked me as well about my charm that I often am seen wearing.
Which you're not wearing today.
I'm not wearing it today, no, but I will be wearing it later.
Okay.
Yes, and it's in most episodes. Anyway, it's been wrongly attributed as an ankh, A-N-K-H, which is some sort of pagan-y kind of charm, which I have no issue with at all. But it isn't that. It's simply the female sign in biology. If you look closely, you'll see it's the circle with the cross pointing downwards, which is the sign for female that is used in all biology. And there is a sign for male, for those that don't know, which is a circle with an arrow pointing up to the side. And I also have that one. So in episode, 289, I will be wearing both of those charms.
Yes, because a few people picked up on that, didn't they?
Yeah, they've wondered that people like them, but this is what they are. It's the male and the female, and I wear usually the female one, but just to be fair, I'm going to start wearing the male one as well.
And they were a gift from our friend, American McGee, and they're actually from his company called Mysterious, where he produces not only jewellery but also soft toys of a very sort of macabre kind of twist. Relating to his video games and his board games that he's brought out. So thank you, American.
Beautiful stuff, and I wear them all the time, American, so thank you.
Yeah.
Right, so I think regarding the podcast, the last podcast, nothing particularly springs to mind at the moment, but what we do need to talk about is episode 287, which came out 2 days ago. Response we've had to that, a bit about it. What do you think? What have people said to you?
It was a video of two halves, wasn't it? because we had the beautiful, stunning Sabah Tea Gardens, and lots of photography, and a little bit of a walk up and around Kamuntsu Hill.
A little bit of a walk.
Yeah, that didn't really come out how high that was. So I think I said that in the video I put that we got to 562 metres. Well, the peak was 1,000 metres, so there was another 500 metres that we couldn't ascend. But because being the tropics, being midday, even though it was overcast and cloudy, it was still pretty hot and humid and hard going, but it was a wonderful walk. Yeah. And we walked around to the other side of the hill, and it was at that point that we realised we couldn't continue any further because the road literally stopped. And after that, I had these grand plans to descend down into the tea plantations, across a little river, and try and find the main road to come back up. And I realised, no, we could get lost here.
We would probably still be there, to be honest. Oh. And at that stage, I think my foot was starting to hurt a bit, and I just was quite keen to get back.
You were in a lot of pain, weren't you?
Yeah, so the first thing I must say is fantastic outpouring of support and love and best wishes, and I really appreciated that from everybody. And just to let you know that my foot feels fine now, so I'm presuming it's all okay. Yes, I mean the pain was excruciating. I couldn't put any weight on it the next day. It gradually got slightly better, but I was limping badly, and it doesn't really come over in the video, but the doctors, when they x-rayed me, they couldn't see a crack, and they said the only way that they would be able to find out was with an MRI scan. And that was rather a lot of money. So we had to decide whether it was worth doing or not. And I asked them, I said, well, if you find in the MRI scan that there is a hairline crack or something somewhere, and it was more closer to the ankle than it was to the foot itself, what would I have to do? And they said, there's nothing you can do. So it doesn't really matter. So we're going to treat you as though you've got it anyway. And I mean, he couldn't touch a certain point of it when he probed, and the foot specialist said, you've definitely got a crack there. So yeah, much better now.
I'm glad to hear that. I had to say I was surprised at how much the MRI was, because I had an MRI a few years ago in Penang, and I seem to remember I only paid about £120 sterling for that, including the consultancy, where it was much more expensive here. I mean, we talked at great length in the video about how medical treatment here is so much cheaper than the West. But yeah, that MRI, I think it was expensive relative to the injury. It was
expensive relative to the injury and also to all the other work that I'd had done. And to be honest, it wasn't more than you paid, I believe. I think it was about 150 quid.
Oh, right, okay.
But we just thought, do we want to pay 150 quid for something that, if the results don't matter, we might as well just treat it as though it is that. And the specialist said it probably is. So you don't, they said to me you don't really need it. So there you go. But yeah, talking, that's health, and we don't have any insurance. So we have to pay. Funnily enough, talking on insurance, as we do in the episode, just so happens to tie in with us trying to get insurance to go to Indonesia, doesn't it? And so we've been looking at that, and to insure ourselves on a boat full time is astronomical. Take US out of the equation, which you always do on health insurance. For worldwide travelling, it's not travel insurance, it's health insurance. It's thousands upon thousands of pounds. Way more than we've spent in the whole time we've been here, just for 1 year's cover. So yeah, I looked at it again, and we won't be doing it unless we go somewhere, and probably it will be the US, where we do have to take it out just in case, while we're there. The problem is, you see, that we are permanently away from home, and we're not in one country, so you need worldwide travel insurance, and we don't have it.
It's a bummer, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we know a lot of people, of course, who don't have insurance.
Yeah.
I think it was Werner, one of our FTB mates, one of our longest patrons, Werner, who's based in between Thailand and Malaysia, and he wrote a lovely long comment about various medical treatments he's had. But even he, and Werner, I'm not sure how old you are, but he's probably a little bit older than you, has basically said he's never had medical insurance and has just paid as he's gone on for each treatment. And he said he came close to having his hand amputated.
Something terrible.
Yeah, it was pretty nasty. But yeah, it was just proof that medical insurance, he felt, wasn't necessarily a requirement if you can afford to pay for it as and when you do need it.
Which, on the whole, you can in this part of the world because of the price. So a lot about medical insurance. One person said to me, "Oh, you've got spontaneous medical insurance." Well, we don't. We have accident and emergency. So I mentioned it in passing. So we're only covered for accident and emergency on the boat, and if we have to be winched off or sent home or something, that's all part of the insurance cover, but nothing like the bone, you know.
One thing I did say in the last episode, which I ended up editing out because it was just too long, but a point I like to make is that I think for younger viewers and listeners of our channel, and I think for younger sailors generally, the subject of injuries and medical insurance is perhaps boring and not so relevant. And I remember, and I'm sure I've told this anecdote before, but when I first started sailing with you, I was still only in my mid-30s. And every Friday night would go down to the bar where I was surrounded by people twice my age. The general subject always seemed to be injuries and illnesses.
And now you're sitting there going on about your back.
Exactly. And I think it's a point worth making to younger sailors is that time moves pretty fast, as Ferris Bueller says. And, it is something that you do have to take seriously as you get older.
Yeah, so keep fit, eat healthily and keep fit. We have not been fit while we've been here, but we will get fit again.
Not here, but, you can be as fit as you like, but that doesn't prevent you from having an accident, of course.
Or developing some awful, terrible things, so yes. Yeah, it's a difficult one. So there we go, that's insurance, that's 287. There is one more thing about 287, well, two more things actually I want to say on 287. A number of people loved your photography so much that they've asked for the images or how they get hold of the images or can you sell the images. I mean, what do you want to say to those people?
Well, all of our supporters, our patrons, our FTB mates, we have a shared Dropbox folder and I post up the best of my favourite images at full resolution.
So they're huge files, yeah.
They're big files and all of our supporters can do anything with those photos providing it's not for commercial gain.
Yeah.
So download as desktops, they can print out to frame on their own wall and so on. So
not worth putting in our shop because by the time you put a framed photo in a shop, in our online shop, it becomes prohibitively expensive.
It is expensive. I mean, we did try it. We did have some photographs in our shop, but we didn't really promote them. No. And they were quite general photos. And I think that there probably are a few photos that people may genuinely be interested in. So one idea that one person suggested, and I'm sorry I didn't make a note of your name, I do apologise, but they said, why not do a limited run?
Yeah.
So there may be an opportunity perhaps to, at the end of an episode, to say in this week's episode, the print that you saw at timestamp 5 minutes in, we've got a limited run of 20 photographs. Okay,
well, just as we talk around this table of bullshit, it occurs to me that if somebody wants our prints, that if they become a Patreon or an FTP mate at only $2 a month, that's the lowest, then they've got access to the prints.
That's very true.
Yeah. And if our patrons and FTP mates don't realise that and they don't know how to do it, get in touch and we'll tell you. And the other thing is that if any of them like specific prints and they're not in that Dropbox file, let us know and you'll put them in, won't you?
Yep. I think also they were making a suggestion as to, why not just put them up on... I'm just trying to think of some
Flickr?
of the... not Flickr. I've forgotten the name. Shutterstock, for
example.
example.
Right, yes. Yeah, we looked at doing that once.
I tried it.
Yeah.
And I guess it's just a case of getting your workflow right. It's just another thing to do on the computer and...
We need an office, we need staff.
We need staff.
We definitely need staff.
We need staff to help us with the back end of making these videos and podcasts, the admin and the editing. So, I should do, it could earn me a few extra quid.
Yeah, there's lots of things that can earn us a few extra quid, but we're just not into it for that, are we? I mean, we'd like the money, but fuck that.
Yes.
Oh, I have to bleep that out. And there is one other thing that I'd like to say. No, before before I do that, Carl, you just spoke and now the whole thing that was in my head is gone. What's wrong with me?
You're getting old, dear.
As you were speaking, I was thinking about the images and what we could do with them. Oh well, it'll come back if it's important. One other thing I wanted to say about the video is I miss that dog.
Ah.
I know.
Now we came up
There were
with,
2 dogs.
so the one that visited us at the cottage.
Yeah.
I came up with a great name because I called her Fluffy. No, I called her Doggy, you called her Fluffy, so we ended up calling her
Duffy?
Duffy.
Yeah.
That's right. We
Yeah.
called her Duffy. What a sweet dog. And you know, on that last morning when I got up really early and tried to get you to wake up to go up the hill, but you couldn't because of your foot. As I walked up the hill, Duffy walked with me and walked with me halfway up the hill. So in the space of 48 hours, we had gained her trust, befriended her, had her sitting by our porch, and was then my gun dog as I walked up the hill with her. And then I think the owner of the cottages drove past and she turned around and she ran back down and chased the Jeep. But oh yeah, what a beautiful dog.
It's funny, isn't it? We meet them everywhere we go. Beautiful dogs and cats.
There are so many wild dogs that semi-feral that live in the mountains here. And you see them as you drive through the mountains, you see so many of these dogs and you wonder, where did they come from? Where are they going? And they all look pretty healthy, don't
Yeah, they look more healthy than some of the town animals sometimes, don't they? I mean, obviously we miss Millie, those people who know us well. We miss Millie every day and we loved having Millie on board. And people keep saying, why don't you get another cat? Why don't you get a dog? People are always pressurising us. We're not going to do that. But what we have instead is we have wonderful animals that become part of our lives for a short time.
And I think even if you just spend 2 days feeding them and petting them, you know, it's perhaps a little highlight for them, and it's a highlight for us. And I suppose it's like having grandchildren, isn't it? You can treasure them while they're in your presence, and then at the end of the day, you just drop them off with the parents, and you don't have to.
What do you
to
mean?
worry
Just forget about them? Is that what grandparents?
Yeah, that's right. Well, they do say that it's better being a grandparent than a parent. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. This is just what I've heard. Pets are like grandchildren.
Oh, and on that note, Jamie, can you let us know what you're going to be doing for the rest of today, please?
Putting all this camera equipment away, and I think I'd like to try and get the next couple of vlog episodes done and dusted so that we've got a clear few days